Welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's online worship. I'm Mike Luce. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm a member of the worship committee. We're a freely gathered, open, welcoming community supported by your contributions, which can be made with the donate button on our website, by going to our Breeze program if you're a member, or by mailing your check to 524 Allen Avenue, Portland, Maine. Please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate for May, which is Ruth's Reusable Resources. Ruth's Reusable Resources works to provide children in Maine with necessary school supplies by transferring unwanted supplies from businesses to schools. To learn more about this organization, please go out to the website linked on our order of service today. This morning's service about parents is presented by Allen Avenue's Worship Committee. Lay-led worship is a tradition at this and many other Unitarian Universalist societies. At Allen Avenue, the Worship Committee either sponsors or presents one such service a month. On most other Sundays, worship is led by our minister, the Reverend Donna Dolan. This is also the time of year that we invite others to consider leading a summer service. Summer services can cover a wide range of topics as long as it provides a meaningful worship experience. If you have a particular area of interest and would like to share that with the congregation, we invite you to fill out the sign-ups form. Additionally, we want to provide a notice of the annual meeting. Call to the meeting. To the members of Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, the annual meeting of Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church will be held at 11 a.m. on Sunday, June 6, 2021. The meeting will be held virtually via Zoom again this year. The purpose of the meeting is for considering and taking action on several matters, including the 21-22 spending plan, and election of board members and nominating committee members. Details on how to access the meeting will be published in the e-blast and sent to you via email ahead of time. By order of the Board of Trustees, May 23, 2021, from Ann Packard, Clerk. Finally, you're invited to join us today, May 30th, after the service for our congregational conversation and coffee hour. To learn more about Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, please go to our website at A2U2.org.
Good morning. My name is John Howard. I'll be lighting the chalice for this morning's worship service. I'm using a chalice that I borrowed from Angie Dirks. The chalice lighting words are by the Reverend Gene Wallstrom. In this small flame dwell the beacon light of lanterns guiding travelers home, the warmth of hearth fires tended through generations, the transforming energy of furnaces, and the power and life of our sun. May these blessings, warmth and light, and life-giving energy be kindled in each of us.
Good morning. My name is Erica Bartlett, and for our Time for All Ages today, I want to share a story called The Farmer's Legacy. I didn't write this, it's from the UUA website. Once there was a farmer. He was very old and ill and knew he would soon die. He had lived a good life, and his only regret was that his 3 children fought all the time. None of them seemed interested in taking care of the large farm the old man had established. The farm was big enough for several farmhouses and produced enough food to easily provide for any families his children might someday start. The only reason the old farmer had worked so hard his entire life was to leave a legacy to his children so their life would be easier. Now that his life was near its end, he wanted to find some way to help them and see what a precious thing it is to be able to work your own land and provide for your family. So he did. One winter day, the old farmer called his children to his sickbed. My children, I have accumulated great wealth. Where is this great wealth? They asked. You have never seen it, but it exists deep in the fields. That is where you will find your legacy. A short time later, the farmer died. His children grieved because they loved their father. Their sadness brought them together and they stopped fighting. One day, they decided to go looking for their legacy. He said it is in the deep fields. It must be buried. We'll need to dig for it. So they dug and dug for days. They dug until they had dug up almost all the farmland, but they found nothing. One sibling said, We have dug up all this land, but we haven't found our legacy. We must have missed it, and I'm too tired to keep digging. Still, it's spring and time to plant crops. Since we have already dug up the earth, we might as well plant this field. So they did. Fall came and they harvested their crops. After the harvest, they dug for their legacy and, not finding it again, decided to plant their crops. This continued for a few years. During that time, they got married and started families, and they lived comfortable lives off the money from selling their crops. They grew strong from working in the fields. One spring, they all realized that the rich land from the farm and being able to provide for themselves and their families was the true legacy their father left them. They stopped digging for treasure and started working the farm, happy that their father had been wise enough to leave them this great gift. They decided that they would all share the land and take good care of it so they would leave it to their children someday. And so they did. Of course, everyone doesn't own farmland to leave to his or her children, but every parent leaves something, a legacy, to his or her children. It might be a house, but it could also be a value, like Unitarian Universalism. The legacy might be a favorite book, but it could be photographs and memories of special times. What about the way you look? Maybe you got your eye color from your great grandmother. Maybe you got your height from your dad's side of the family. Maybe your sense of humor from your mother. Maybe your cousin is the person handing down the family recipe that goes back several generations. What did you receive as a legacy from an ancestor? So you can think about that question and those what you get from your ancestors as we go into the week.
Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are
to Remember by Nicole McKay. We gather to remember those who could not grow old and those forced to grow old long before their time. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all of our losses, the people, the stories, the loved ones, and the futures that could have been. We gather to do the hard work of facing the difficult realities of our present and our past, where there is conflict, violence, war, and hatred. We gather to hold space for silence as we try to make meaning of our history, to help us work for peace and justice today. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for our future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity. As we join in a concerted commitment for a better tomorrow, we gather because we need community to do all of this holy work.
Mother's Day, spend big bucks and say thanks. Father's Day, spend big bucks and say thanks. Well, I say enough. Let's proclaim today to be Parents' Day and use it for thanks without the big bucks. This is not a new idea. In 1994, Bill Clinton signed a law proclaiming that Parents' Day would be celebrated on the fourth Sunday of July. The United Nations has proclaimed June 1st as Global Parents' Day. I say, let's go international. Happy Parents' Day on this coming Tuesday. I will thank my father for passing down to me a sense of humor. A math professor at the University of Maine in Orono, Dad knew that 1 + 1 = 2. But he ignored that simple fact when my twin sister and I were born. An unexpected event in the days before ultrasound told you all you wanted to know and maybe more before your progeny arrived. Dad went around telling some friends that it was a boy, others that it was a girl, and then leaving them to figure things out on their own when they got together. We had an upright piano that could not be carried around the corner into our den, so Dad took it apart, numbering the pieces as he went, and put it back together in the den. Then let visitors try to figure out how it got there. We eventually sold the house with the piano still trapped inside. Or maybe we sold the piano as a musical instrument that happened to have a house around it for protection from the weather. I don't remember just what the paperwork said. Now, my father lived in an era when gentlemen were gentlemen, and he always tipped his hat to ladies. Most of them never saw him with the red clown nose he wore for faculty skit nights, like this. I remember the smile on his face when he realized that the hole in the rusting floorboard of his car made a good ashtray. And I remember how he could reduce a visiting friend of my sister's to convulsive laughter. Well, Dad loved nonsense and limericks and singing Mares he Dotes and quoting the characters of Lewis Carroll, who was in real life Charles Dodgson, another professional mathematician. Well, yes, my father loved humor, my mother not so much. Oh, Spoff, she would say when he cracked a joke, for his first name was Spofford, He had a teaching colleague whose first name was Wofford, and campus co-eds were rumored to keep Spofford and Wofford dolls in their room. But I digress. As I thank my father for humor, I will thank my mother for anxiety. I remember her standing one Saturday morning outside our small cabin on the shore in Hancock and reacting to the most glorious summer weather known to humankind by saying, "Oh dear, I suppose this means it will rain next weekend when company comes." My father simply refused whenever he could to be anxious. Having purchased a brand new car, the only one he could ever afford, he brought it home and put a garden spade into the trunk, so if he ever heard a rattle, he would know the cause and not have to worry about it. But no such tricks for Mom. Now, she was a good woman who gave me much more than anxiety, but she did seem to need some worries. She made the best chocolate chip cookies I have ever eaten, and to this day, some of Orono's elders wonder how she did it. But Mom apologized every time she served them, certain that they were not good enough. She apologized for everything, so much so that her friends teased her about it, and she responded with a wan smile. She had more than her share of angst, and she passed some down to me, and I am grateful. Seriously? Grateful for angst? Yes, because angst triggers humor. Angst and humor are opposites in interplay. Think of angst as human yeast swelling the self to the point of such pain that relief is required. You can find that relief in a pill, by running a marathon, at the bottom of a whiskey bottle, or in laughter. And I choose the laughter. I'm usually nervous when I stand at Allen Avenue's pulpit, and if I can begin whatever I am doing with a quip that elicits laughter, then all is well. I do this for me as well as for the congregation. Thank you, Mom, for the nerves of quivering, stomach-churning, pulse-quickening dread that begets the joke and the laughter, for which I thank Dad. The apple does not fall far from the tree that drops it. The apple with its tasty, fleshy fruit and its crunchy, threatening seeds, safe enough in small amount, poisonous in bulk. Flesh and seed, humor and angst. Put them together and what have you got? Me. Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Mom. And happy Parents' Day to all.
Hi, I'm Susie Hubley, and my pronouns are she and her. I chose this reading for this service because it said something to me, it really touched me, said something to me about our general relationships with each other and if there's some element of healthy parenting in them. So these are the words of Barbara Rhodey, and it's called Comfort Ye, My People. I wasn't flattered when one of my daughters confided that she thought of me as the big there when she was 3 years old. If I remember correctly, I was in the middle of a phase where I was hoping to reassure myself that I still had a fertile mind as well as a welcoming bosom. Now, years later, I can admit that the role of big there is a necessary part of parenthood, not to be disparaged. At times, even the most mature of us want someone to dry our eyes, encircle us with welcoming arms, and offer us a cup of hot cocoa. I shall be forever grateful to my friend Ruth, who interrupted her political campaign to ride to the hospital, make her way past the folks in intensive care with convincing stories that I was her little sister, and reach bravely through the thicket of IVs, heart monitors, and breathing tubes to embrace me. Still, the origin of the word comfort means to make strong, As comforters, we often believe we have to take away the pain, only to discover that we are only able to help those in pain find the sources of their own strength. At times, it is our mere presence. I'm here. I see your suffering. I care for you. At times, it's a helping hand. I'll vacuum. I'll wash up these dishes. I'll drive you. At times, it is a few words that put things in perspective. We're never quite sure what will truly comfort another or what special act will comfort us. We go looking for a big there, and instead find that the excitement of a new idea helps lift us from despair. I expected little solace from my frail 90-year-old father when he called me in the hospital to see how I was. But when he called me Punky for the first time in 54 years, I felt the fidelity of that relationship. My narrow room was filled with memory and hope. Perhaps those of us who would be comforters could learn from the medieval scholastic who wrote so long ago, "Work therefore in what you do from love and not from fear." If we can put aside our fear that we might say or do something to add inadvertently to the suffering of those we would comfort, if we can put aside our fear of our own loss or the pain of our own pity, then love might find its way of bringing strength to the weak and light to those in shadows. Thank you.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great nations. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great nations. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Good morning. My piece is entitled Endearing. I'm Anna Noyes-Benoit. Your daughter and stepdaughter are briefly reunited after many years here in Florida, where she lives, in a Disney world of gated communities, next door to another golf course, separated only by a grove of trees, palms and oaks loaded with Spanish moss. Not the weird wisteria I remember from childhood road trips, when Mother would leave you behind and we would drive south. Always the mysterious tilted room and large breakfasts with grits, only after we drove down a tank of gas. We would arrive at an East Coast hotel with white sandy beaches, shocking blue skies, and aqua water warm as a wading pool. After a day on the beach, we would hit the hotel pool, but later, sunburned skin would reveal itself. Ghastly heat emanating from our own red skin. Couldn't eat without vomiting. Laying on starchy, scratchy hotel sheets, waiting for it to turn to a tan. Impossible with our light skin tones. Now another trip as an adult to the Gulf Coast with sunscreen number 45. Mother is long dead, and her laissez-faire parenting, impulsive recklessness has become a charming legacy. After death came forgiveness and a heart full of love. But this is your story, Daddy, and you are not so easy to forgive, even though your death occurred nearly 5 decades ago. We begin to talk of you approaching memories with a foolhardiness learned from Mom. At my sister's side, so recently reunited, I can trust her good intentions of sisterly affection. I'm safely a stranger who she's getting to know again. We make a game, a free association, and generate a list. First came the memory of your smoky smell. I remembered the tweed jacket and the odor of whiskey and cloves. She saw you scrunched down while driving, a little man wearing a fedora. Then came your chuckle and dry sense of humor, and the meanness that Mother always thought forgivable when you'd had a few. We moved on quickly to your amazing memory, smug confidence in your brilliant mind, a renowned bridge player who played with Gorin for cripe's sake, a card counter, and a picky eater who liked heartily boiled eggs and nearly raw beef, a man who could do 9 different things at once, but was intensely focused at other times, a ladies' man, a loner. Your exceptional brain got all the glory, while your bad boy heart was ignored and became broken beyond repair. I understand now it wasn't just the booze that did the damage, and that brings its own kind of peace. I look out at my sister's landscaped golf course and try to guess what was there before, under the trucked-in topsoil, mechanically carved and contoured terrain, an artificial lake, before the developers came along, and I imagine white-tailed deer and tall orange-billed ibis. I imagine open space and prairie grass, and I imagine seeing down through the tannic brown water the color of whiskey as I stand in the air-conditioned comfort of these clean, stucco gray walls, seeing through to the honesty of the past, to the truth that lays there waiting on the sandy, spongy bottom.
My name is Erica Bartlett, and I have to say, I'm not usually a fan of commercials, but I do like the ones from Progressive Insurance, where a guy named Dr. Rick helps new homeowners avoid turning into their parents. If you haven't seen these, Dr. Rick is a white, middle-aged man with a mustache, kind of like Dr. Phil, who tries to prevent parentamorphosis in his clients. One example shows a young man who's clearly channeling his father by trying to tell a plumber how to fix the sink, and Dr. Rick pulls the young man away, reminding him that he hired the plumber and needs to let him get on with his work. In another scenario, Dr. Rick looks at a couch that's completely covered with throw pillows and tells a young woman who's following her mother's example that if the couch doesn't have any place to sit at all, it has too many pillows. The commercials are funny because they're so true. I think we've all faced moments as we age when we suddenly realize, or someone tells us, that we've adopted traits from our parents that used to annoy the heck out of us when we were younger. I know I've experienced this. When I was younger, my dad was always quick to point out that we were wasting electricity if we left lights on when we didn't need them. And the habit of turning lights off is so ingrained that I've actually turned them off even when someone else is in the room that I've left. As for my mom, she never met a box she didn't like, and I have to resist the temptation to keep all kinds of boxes. I do end up keeping some for my cats, but at least I don't have an attic full of them. But of course, we also absorb or learn other lessons from our parents as well. This is something I think about a lot around Mother's Day, particularly because my mom used to say that I came through her, but not from her. And it's true that a lot of the things I enjoy and am interested in are more like my dad. Being good at math, science, and spelling come from him, as well as a love of reading. My mom only read for pleasure during the summer, and she let herself read one book during Christmas vacation. But during the school year when she was teaching, it wasn't a priority for her, which is something I never understood. Nor could she understand how I could read for hours during a single day. I also never got into biking, ice skating, or gardening like she did. And I have yet to identify any kind of work that I'm as passionate about as she was about teaching. But after she died, I did start to discover more ways that I was like her. And I've sometimes tried to cultivate those in the hopes of somehow keeping her alive that way. For example, when I'm around kids, I try to channel her and interact with them the way she would have, with kindness and genuine interest and compassion, but necessary boundaries. I don't garden, but I do like to grow tomatoes in pots on my patio, and even that little bit helps me understand some of what she enjoyed about it. I'm not always good with change, but I'm more open to trying new things than I used to be, which is something my mom was very good at. Over the past 20 years, though, I've also had to learn that I can't force myself to be something I'm not, nor do I really want to. I still enjoy taking time for reading every day, and while I like some social activities, I also want to balance it out with time alone. I don't go biking, but I enjoy getting out for walks. And when I bake, which I learned from my dad, I think of the tips he gave me. So these days, I don't worry too much about parentamorphosis. I know I'm like both my parents in some ways and not like them in others, and that's okay.
There is no love somewhere. There is no love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is no love somewhere. There is no hope somewhere. There is no hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is no hope somewhere. There is no peace somewhere. There is no peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
words from Linda Hogan, a mixed blood Chickasaw. She wrote, "Walking, I am listening to a deeper way. Suddenly, all my ancestors are behind me. Be still, they say. Watch and listen. You are the result of the love of thousands." And as you, my friends, walk forward into the week, may you too remember your parents and other ancestors and think of the love of thousands that brought you into this world. Blessed be.